Alright, so I made this video to help you do the research once you've downloaded your Excel spreadsheet from Esurv. To do that, all you need to do is go into Esurv, click on Results, and then click on Export at the top, and you can pull up this file. So this is all the compiled data from all the people who filled out the survey. Now, when you pull it up, it's going to have a lot of nonsense stuff you don't need, like the IP address and how long it took people to take each survey and when they took it and so forth. But again, you don't need any of this. So just highlight A through J and then right-click and click Delete. And all those are gone. If you notice, there are two different labels for each variable, that is, each question in your survey. You don't need both. It's preferable to actually have what the actual variables are rather than these numbers. So click on one on the far left and then right click to delete that row. Now you have all the different labels at the top, which is what you want. So all our spreadsheet is ready to go. We've got our 20 columns and our 100 rows for the 100 respondents. So the easy part for the research is to make pie charts. So let's go over that first. If you just click a plus down here at the bottom, you can get a new sheet. So to make a pie chart, just look at your results in Esurv and look at each categorical variable and put the name in the B column. Like for instance, your first one might be gender, some demographic factor. And let's just put the cisgender male, female, make it easy. Oh, not make, male, female. And let's say other. And let's say of the 100 people, you had 45 men, 53 female, identified as female, and 2 other. So to make a pie chart, after you, again, type this in, this is all in Esurv, and the results, it will give you this breakdown. You go to Excel, highlight that, and click Insert, and then you'll see the graphs, and then just click on the pie chart. I think the 3D looks kind of cool, and there's different design view, like if you click on the different layout, you can change it, the chart design. I think this one's kind of nice with the shading and the percents. One other thing I don't like is how it makes these boxes so small. So if you click on home, you can make these larger, like just to increase the font size a little bit. You might want to do the same thing with the percents. You can highlight those, go back to home, change the font size on those as well to kind of make them pop a little bit. You might want to do the same thing with the title. If you think the title is a little too small, again, click on it, highlight it, go back home, and just change the font size, make it a little bit bigger. All right, so once you're pretty happy with the way the graph looks, I would just make it small out of the way, and then do another one. Just basically do all your pie charts all in one sheet. And then you can right click on the sheet name here at the bottom and click rename, and we'll call it pie charts. So all your categorical variables can be in one page here, and that's pretty much, if you do that and do a good introduction, you probably got at least a C, probably a B on your paper. But to get an A, you really want to get at the heart of the relationships between these variables. So let's click on this tab, and again, all these tabs will be saved as one file. This is the 2x2 template that I posted. I went ahead and just loaded it in here as well to help you do the chi-square. So let's go back to our data. And now we've got it all cleaned up. Remember, we highlighted rows A through J, right click and deleted them, and we deleted row 1. Again, all these instructions are in the notes I posted. So now we're ready to do some comparisons. So if you look at the notes, it tells you just click on any random cell and just go to Insert, Pivot Table. So again, that's right there, just simple Insert Pivot Table, and click OK. And it's going to make a new worksheet, again, a new tab at the bottom for you to do a comparison between two variables. So just click OK. So there it is, a new tab at the bottom, and still all going to be saved in one file. You still got your data here, still the pie charts and the template I posted. But let's do a pivot table. So again, what you want to do is compare two categorical variables. So we need to see how these two variables compare against each other. So let's just look at some of these variables that we have here. One question I might consider is maybe politically speaking, how do people feel about abortion? That is, does the issue of abortion polarize people of different political spectrums? So one of the questions I asked in the survey was, do you consider yourself more liberal or more conservative? And my hypothesis would be liberals would be more likely to be pro-choice on the abortion issue. So let's test that hypothesis and see if I have significant evidence to support that belief. So let me drag one of these variables, the liberal conservative, down to the row. Again, doesn't really matter which is which. And the other one, the abortion issue, which happens to be right below it, which these questions will be in the same order on your survey, and you can read what they are right here, to the column. And there they are, liberal, conservative, pro-choice, pro-life. Now you'll notice there's no values in there. Well, if you notice on the right, there's a box that says values. So drag either of the two variables, doesn't matter which one, to the values box, and bam, they're there. That's it. That's all you have to do to make a pivot table. So once you've got a pivot table, what I would suggest you do is retype it. That is, sometimes you'll have yes and no questions and it's not really clear what those are. This is pretty clear. You've got conservative and liberal, so I'm just going to basically retype that, conservative and liberal. And then I've got the other variable about abortion, which I basically said, are you more likely to identify as pro-choice or pro-life? Again, kind of force people to pick one of those two categories. Now, I know some of your questions might have more than two categories, like this one. So one person didn't even answer this question. They didn't, probably feel comfortable picking a side. Just ignore them. Just like if you have certain categories where there's very little representation, you can either condense them with other categories, add the numbers together, or just ignore them if there's only a few people that filled them out. So I'm just going to copy down the data in the table. And as you can see, that means there's 13 people in my survey that identified as conservative that were also pro-choice. But 68 liberals who are identified as pro-choice. So you can see in the pro-choice, mostly liberals. Well, let's see if it's the same for pro-life. For pro-life, I had only, 66 conservatives. Well, a lot actually, but only 8 liberals. Oh my gosh, everything reversed. Well, this is probably no surprise to you because obviously the stereotype is that liberals tend to be more likely to be pro-choice, and our evidence, our data really supports that hypothesis. Let's make a graph of this and see. And again, I don't really have to do all this because I've made templates to do it, but I just want to show you how easy it is. Again, the data's all here. Just highlight it and go to Insert, and this time we're going to do a bar chart. So click on the bar chart, and I would pick the one probably that has like the side by side. I think that one looks good right there. And there it is. And again, if you click on the chart design at the top, you can change the different formats. I like this one because it has the actual frequencies for each group. And again, you can see the little legend here is a little small, so I'm going to go to home and kind of make that bigger. You can also just click here and kind of beef it up to look good. So it really pops. Also, these labels at the bottom, a little small. So I'm going to go to home and then kind of upscale those a little bit so I can kind of read really what's going on. So I've got conservatives in blue and liberals in red. Traditionally, those would be opposite colors, but it doesn't really matter because you can see what's going on here. Pro-choice, mostly liberal, pro-life, mostly conservative. If these variables were not related, you'd expect the shape and colors to match. That is, small blue to big red to be small blue to big red here. They're not. They don't match. They're not at all the same. They actually reverse, which means we have strong evidence of a relationship here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these 4 numbers, copy them using Control-C, go to my template that I posted, and paste these into the template. Control-V. Now watch, all the numbers will change here. All these values are programmed to do the chi-square analysis, just like what your calculator would do. And if you want to learn how to do it on your calculator, I've posted videos to that. But you don't really need to. So I'm just going to paste those values there and see everything changed. And oh my gosh, even stronger evidence than we had for political affiliation and border wall, whether or not we support building the stronger border between the United States and Mexico. This is a p-value of 9.18 times 10 to the negative 20th. That's basically 0. That's 0.000. That's 19 zeros and then 918. Meaning that there's basically no chance that a relationship this strong as what we're seeing would happen by chance. Meaning, if we assume these variables are not related, the probability that we would see data this different, that is, the proportions change so dramatically, is basically 0. Like again, it's 9.18 times 10 to the negative 20th power. Basically 0. Meaning there's super strong evidence that these two variables are related. Well, obviously they are. In fact, if we wanted to, put the numbers here, this graph would change as well, just like we did a second ago, recreated it. So let's go back to that last tab and see how they're related. And again, if you look in the templates, I've got examples of how this all works, but let's just do it from scratch. So let's go back to that last tab and let's talk about how we know the relationship exists. Well, what do we want to say here? Well, let's just pick a side. Like let's say support a woman's right to abortions. Let's say pro-choice. So pro-choice, which is right here, and I'm going to compare the rate at which conservatives are pro-choice to liberals. So conservatives, we had what? 13 out of a total of 78. So I'm going to put equals for a formula. I'm going to put 13, because there's 13 right in that box for conservatives that are pro-choice. Out of a total conservatives, you can see on the top chart that there were 79. Just add those two numbers together in that top row, 13 and 66. So 13 out of these 79 conservatives identify as pro-choice. That's about 16%. For liberals, it's much, much higher. If we look at the liberal rate, it's 68 out of the total of 77 who answer that question. Actually, 76, because we're going to ignore that blank. So 68 out of the 76 liberals who answered this question identified as pro-choice. That's 89%. Let's zoom in here so we can really see those percent differences. That's a huge difference. One number we tend to use to compare those is the relative rate. The relative rate is what we get when we divide them. So let's take the bigger number, 0.8947, and divide it by the smaller number, 0.16455. Basically, what this tells you is that liberals are 5 times more likely to be pro-choice than conservatives. Because if you look at the rate, 89% versus 16%, that's over 5 times higher. So that's the kind of thing you'd want to put in your paper. You want to say that liberals are over 5 times more likely to be pro-choice than conservatives, which basically tells you the nature of the relationship. And again, looking back at the template, we see that this is highly significant. And again, look at all the templates because each one gives you a different example and explains it and shows you how to calculate these proportions. So basically that's it. That's all you need to do to get an A+ paper is go through, complete your pie charts, and then do about 5 relationships. To make it easy, try to stick with categorical versus categorical. I know you might have some that have more than 2 categories, and that's why I made templates for you that have 3 and 4 categories. But make it easy on yourself, condense them down to 2 by 2, and you can follow along just like in the video, and you should be in good shape. All right, good luck with your paper. Take care.